Hello and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast. This podcast is dedicated to bringing you expert teachers to help you to feel that mind, body, and spirit connection, both with yourself and your true love. I'm your host, love coach Valerie Green from coachvaleriegreen.com. And in this episode, I'm really excited to interview Emma Viglucci, and we're going to talk about a fun topic about how to change your partner or what actually works. So hi, Emma.
Hello, Valerie. So excited to be here.
So excited because I've known Emma for, I think it might even be over 10 years.
I think so.
We actually met at a networking event, and I was just immediately drawn to the body of knowledge that she has because she's such an expert on how to make relationships thrive. So I will tell you a little bit about Emma before we dive in. So Emma has been a psychotherapist in the mental health field for over 20 years. And she is the founder and director of metrorelationship.com, which is both a psychotherapy and coaching practice in New York City, which is where I met her. And she specializes in working with busy professional couples who are struggling to get on the same page and feel connected. And she really helps them develop that emotional connection so that they can really thrive for years to come. So I have regularly been asking Emma for advice on relationships, and I always find that she has incredibly great insights into how to get to the heart of what really makes relationships thrive and what really makes people feel that lasting passion. So thank you. Pleasure to have you. And so I really love this topic because most people come to both of us, I know, asking, how do I change my partner? How do I make my boyfriend call me more? How do I make my wife be more emotionally available instead of dismissive? Because men want that too. And so, and as we know, that really gets us in a rut. So why don't we start out with talking about how do people get stuck in a rut trying to change their partner?
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to hang out with you and share time with you. So I'm so excited to be here having this conversation. So it's going to be so fun. And to get us started, so it's interesting how we think that we can change our partner. And the question of the day is, can we?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to cheat and I'm going to say yes. But to learn how, you're going to have to listen to the whole thing because it's a little tricky on how you could do it. And so more directly, to answer your question, Valerie, why do we get stuck and wanting to change our partner, but they're not changing? And we wait and we wait. And our partner's waiting for us to change. And they wait and they wait. So everybody's waiting for the other one to change. And hence the stuckness in a relationship, right? And so that's part of the stuckness that we're waiting because we have no control over somebody else. And we might beg, we might force, we might cajole, we might do all the things that we try to do, demand, beat it out of them, whatever we do. And it doesn't work, right? As we know, we have no control over somebody else. And I'm sure that we know for ourselves, so that when somebody tells us what to do, on how we should be, or how we should behave, or how should we feel, we don't like it. We don't want to do what somebody else tells us to do, or be somebody that we don't think we are, or somebody else tells us how to be or who to be.
Exactly.
Same thing, right? So that's why we get stuck in that waiting game because nobody wants to be told who they should be and how they should be.
Right. And then it just turns into this power struggle where the more, because I think we can all identify with this. If we felt somebody trying to change us, it kind of makes us dig our heels in and not want to change.
Exactly. Yeah, that's part of the stuckness.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you teach about, when you said actually you can, but you have to listen to the whole thing. It's about how to really influence somebody, which always starts with really inspiring yourself and then inspiring the other person. But let's first talk about what are all the ways that people get stuck, perpetuating the ways that they're in the power struggle. Like, what are their mistakes that people make when they try to change the other person?
Yeah, well, so many. And the first one is that they show up with trying to make them do things and blaming them for things, and having that separateness idea of being, I'm an individual, you're an individual, let's be really independent and let's create something together, which is fine. But there's so much more to that keeps the partners being separate, not part of a unit. Right. And so not being part of a whole then perpetuates all of that. And so then the way that the partners might show up is with a criticism, with a blaming, with a demandingness, with forcing, with shutting down, withdrawing, punishing, what's the word? Like keeping withdrawing?
Yeah, no. That's the word.
Withdrawing is like this, like moving away.
Yeah, or stonewalling a lot of times is what it's called.
Yeah. So like not being forthcoming with love or with sex or with intimacy or with kindness, with appreciation. It's like so silly, the things that we do, right? Or the things our partner might do. I'm throwing myself in there just to be compassionate.
It's silly, but I mean, I think we've all done it. So yeah, we can forgive ourselves if we've done it, but at the same time, it doesn't work because then the other person feels judged and manipulated.
Right. It doesn't feel good to do it. And it doesn't feel good when it's done to us, because even when we do it, we think that we're getting something by doing it or from doing it, but we don't. So it's frustrating. But also, let's remember that at the end of the day, we're all part of the human condition. So what I do to you, I also do to myself. So if I'm being mean to you, I'm being mean to myself too. And this is where the conversation, so there's some things that I want to share about that as we go today. But that's part of the thing that doesn't feel so good. So if I'm being mean to you, I'm being mean to myself. And I hear partners say things like, well, it felt good to give it to him or to give it to her. And it's like, yeah, how long did that last? Like a second. And then they're back to like, oh, this stinks, So like, you're not going to get anything out of that. So that's another way that people show up that doesn't really serve them individually or as a couple at the end of the day.
Right. I completely agree that whatever we get out of it is short-lived. I think a lot of people might say, but I do get something out of it because I got to get it off my chest. I'm just complaining and criticizing, sure, but they might not think of it that way. Like a lot of times, and when I mess up and I criticize my husband, it's because I'm trying to get him to see how I feel. And I think I'm actually letting him know how I feel. And so it feels good to express it rather than keep it inside, because maybe I don't know how else to do it. But then, as you're saying, that good feeling only lasts for a few minutes. And then afterwards, I mean, it feels good because it feels familiar. I think it's scary to try things that feel unfamiliar, but it's a little bit like, if you wear shoes that are too tight, maybe it feels weird. If then you wear shoes that are the right size because you're used to wearing shoes that feel too tight, like, let's say you've been wearing shoes that feel too tight your whole life, is going to feel normal. So maybe it feels normal to criticize your partner because that's what you grew up with or whatever, but that's not actually going to work. And then we create more things to complain about, right?
Right. Well, I love how you said all that. Yes, it feels good for that moment. It's familiar. That's what we know. We don't know something else, something different, it's uncomfortable. But also, I mean, it is a relief, like it's a relief valve. So it's like you're letting off. So for that, it might feel good. But then when we look at the impact that it's having on our partner and the result of that, we're actually shooting ourselves on the foot, right? So we're not getting anything, we're getting worse than when we started. So potentially we make our partner withdraw even more, or for them, we invite them to attack us back. Nothing good comes of that. I feel very fleeting benefit. So it's not worth it.
Yep, exactly. It's definitely not worth it. And so what would be the necessary shift then to get past this and actually successfully influence the other person?
Yeah. So what I love to say is that the best way to do a relationship is to look at our partner as a life partner with a capital P. They are the most important person Some people take offense to that because their children are very important, or other people are also very important. Yes, they are, but they're not co-making your life with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your partner is your life partner. That role is like, that's a big role. And so if we treat them with the reverence that the big position requires, in the respect and the admiration and the love and just that joint, we're in this together, we're allies in creating life, we're partners, we're right, so we're in this together. It's not me against you, which is what most partners do, is
Right.
us against or in this thing called
Mm-hmm.
life, that we create something beautiful if we put all of our strengths in all of our things towards the bigger picture instead of nitpicking it and being against each other. So that's the biggest shift, right? Looking at the partner with a big reverence, and looking at the partnership as like, wow, this is the vehicle to create my best life. In this partnership, I could create anything. And if we tap into all of the resources and synergy as part of this relationship, watch out world and watch out universe, because we could do this, right? Much easier
Yes.
by ourselves.
Yeah, you said a lot of wonderful things there that I want to unpack.
Sure.
So first of all, I agree. Like, it's not like we're saying reverence for the other person above ourselves. We're saying reverence for at least what I think you're saying is reverence for the role that you're stepping into with this other person, that you're on the same team. I
Mm-hmm.
actually really like that. There's a quote that I've seen that true love isn't just looking into each other's eyes, it's actually looking in the same direction together.
Oh, beautiful.
And
Exactly.
that
That's what it is.
it's about what you're co-creating. And that if you're really having that mindset of the win-win, because that's the only way that it's going to work. This person's on the same team as me, and I'm trying to create a win-win, then that applies whether you're dating or whether you've actually chosen this person as your life partner. Because I think a lot of the people listening are single and dating, and so they're not ready to prioritize the other person as a life partner. But at the same time, if you are auditioning this person as your future life partner, then you want to speak to them as if you're on the same team and there's a win-win. And I think that that is what you're saying.
Oh, yes, definitely. So thank you for that clarification. You already knew that, but for the reminder. So yeah, so for those who are not committed yet, if you are dating and you're like, okay, so how do I create an amazing relationship with somebody? How do I choose somebody? So then the thing is, does this person have the qualities or the potential, right? Because we're not set in stone. We're not done. We're always evolving, always growing. So do they have the potential to embody or to become or to have some of the qualities that I'm looking for in a life partner? Not that we mean that for them to change, but rather if they get rid of some of their stuff that's covering their awesomeness, is their core all the things that I'm looking for.
Right,
Right. And I
exactly.
see through whatever things they might be putting up, because we have human stuff that we do, right? We have defenses, we have habits, we have things. But if I look past that, is that good raw material that we
Mm-hmm.
could, together we could massage, and together we could create really good stuff together.
Right, exactly. And then I think, I'm looking forward to hashing this out with some specific examples, like, let's say, how would you want to change a habit that a partner has? Like, let's say they're chronically late or something like that. But I think, before we get to how to change the other person, or influence the other person, let's talk about, what do people have to do inside themselves first
Mm-hmm.
before you're even ready to speak about what you want to change?
Well, yes. Let's see. So you know what? This might not be a very popular way of answering this, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that we're perfect just the way we are.
I like that.
right? So, but a lot of people who are into like self-help and personal development, myself included, obviously, sometimes we believe like, we're always striving to improve ourselves, to develop more and to evolve more. Yes, all of that is true, but we are also just perfect. We have all of the things that makes us unique and amazing. So we don't have to necessarily change anything. We just have to get out of our own way and really be who we really are. That's the work
Yes,
and solution and everything else that we do, the personal development.
exactly.
Get out of our own way. So then we're not really changing ourselves per se. We're just connecting with ourselves more. We're just
Right,
getting
on a deeper level.
ourselves more. Yes. And so I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, well, I love what you said because it is kind of a paradox, meaning in order to influence the other person, we first have to influence ourselves. And if we're judging ourselves, then we're against ourselves, then we're likely to judge the other person and be against them. So, however, we want to influence the other person on the outside, we also have to go deeper on the inside of ourselves and connect to how do we get out of our own way. Right. So do you want to talk more about the how-to of that?
Yes, that's so beautiful. Exactly. So the way to get more in connection with our own selves, to get out of our own way, to make the changes that we're looking to make, with that, not because something's wrong with us, but just to become more ourselves and to be more beautiful, more radiant,
Yes.
is to what I like to call doing self-love practices,
Mm-hmm.
self-care. And sometimes I get a reaction from clients about this self-care, right? Who has time for self-care? How the heck do we do self-care? What does self-care mean, right? All that, I'm sure you're familiar with this.
Right.
um, and so what I like to say is self-care is not a luxury. Self-care allows us, and self-love allows us to get in connection with ourselves. And that's where uniqueness, our beautifulness, all of the good stuff is that then we bring to the interaction with our partner. When we show up
Yes.
with that part of ourselves, our partner will do anything that we want. What? What a concept. I think I just gave it away. But so I mean, just show up with your beautiful self, not with the wicked witch of the West, like just nice. Let's show up with our best self, with nurturing, with compassion, with love, with acceptance, with understanding, right? And first we have that to have that for ourselves, like you were saying. So no judgment, acceptance. So very practical way of doing this, Valerie, is monitoring our thought processes,
Mm,
right? Because we're really good at beating ourselves up. Like if
right.
we really pay attention, the scripts, the stories, the judgment, the criticism, how mean we could potentially be to ourselves, terrible, right? So if that's the only thing we do, we're way ahead of the game. So that's number one, observe the thoughts. And the thoughts, I mean, there's a few things in just that number one. So mind what kind of thoughts you're having about yourself, about your partner, about the relationship, and about everything else, right? So just if you watch your thoughts, you will see patterns. Am I a victim? Do things always happen to me? Do I always do everything? Like there's all kinds of scripts and patterns that you will see if you start paying really close attention to the thoughts that you have. My
Right.
partner sucks. My partner sucks. My partner sucks. My partner sucks. Then we believe it. Your partner doesn't suck. Your partner's another awesome human being, also having a human experience, and they chose you to be the life partner. What a special role they put you in if you're in a
Mm-hmm.
committed relationship, right? And so that's very special. Why would we be mean to them? Why would we treat them poorly? Right? So like that's we should be grateful for that and really appreciate the fact that they chose us, just like we're choosing them if we're in a committed relationship. That
Right.
bond is amazing.
And that's a good question, actually, because when I ask myself the times that I have treated my husband poorly, why did I do that? It's programming, right? It's the way that my dad treated me when he wanted me to change, criticizing, manipulating, controlling, right? Demanding. And did that work for me? No, that made me rebel.
Right.
But it's like we do it because that's what we were taught. It's just automatic. And so it takes slowing down and looking at why do I do that? oh, I do that because that was what was done to me. Does it work? No. What would actually work better? Right.
What a concept. That's number one, right? So watching the thought processes, that would be one. Number two, like what you said, let's piggyback on that. So, observing, how am I behaving? Is this working? I'm actually getting a negative reaction from my partner. Maybe I should try a different approach. Is
Right.
approach a kinder approach? Is speaking about me approach as opposed to beating on them approach, right? I had a thought that fell out of my head. So maybe hopefully it'll come back. So number three then is keeping boundaries, right? So like just owning ourselves and not owning our partners. So it's kind of like similar, but more specific in terms of being accountable for ourselves, our own actions, how we show up, and not telling our partner what to do, what to be, how to be, and all the things that we like to do. That's being in their circle. That's
Yes.
And that's not owning us, right? So if we speak from our own circle, that's where the power is, because we could exert change. We have control over our stuff. We have no control over their stuff. So if we do our circle, we show up with our awesomeness, then we can influence and invite and induce and welcome things from them. But if we go at them, they're going to be like, get out of my circle.
Yes, exactly.
We're not going to get what we want, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, I do quote Emma in my book, The Commitment Roadmap, about the circles. I actually teach, and the concept of the circles, which I also teach my clients, comes from Emma. And so maybe we can use some examples, because I think that really brings it home on what does it mean to stay in your circle versus go into the other person's circle, and how is that much more effective when we want to influence somebody?
Yes. Okay. So let me do a quick overview about what the circles are, and then we could go a little deeper. So imagine that you have an invisible hula hoop around your body. And this is how I like to teach it to my clients.
Ooh, I like hula hoop.
Invisible hula hoop. So in this circle, inside this hula hoop, is everything about you. Whether you like a strawberry ice cream, when you like to brush your teeth, your ethnicity, your language, all your wounds, all your hurts, all your uniqueness, all of your stuff, everything about you is in your circle. Your partner has one, I have one, you, Valerie, have one. We all have a circle. What partners like to do is leave their circle and go into their partner's circle. And they like to tell them when to eat strawberry ice cream, when to brush their teeth, if they like strawberry ice cream or not, whether you like it or not, right? And they love to go there and tell their partner how to think, how to feel, and how to behave. Now their circle's empty. Nobody's minding their business, their thoughts, their feelings, their actions, all their stuff. And the partner circle is crowded. And it could happen vice versa. It's fun when they're in each other's circles, right? It's really disempowering. Woohoo!
Right. I mean, who wants to be told what to do or what to think or how to behave or
Yeah.
what
And
to
so if I go in my
prefer?
partner's circle, my partner's going to feel crowded. So they might shrivel down. They might not show up. They might actually leave, literally, right? So then we wonder, how come our partner's not available? How come our partner doesn't show up? How come my partner's cheating? All the things that our partner that we don't like that they might do. Somebody used recently weaponized incompetence.
What is the word?
Oh my gosh, weaponized incompetence. So supposedly men are really good at this. They're like, how do I put the dishes in the dishwasher?
Right. It's kind of a little bit of a passive aggressive way of resisting being controlled.
Right? Beautiful. So if we leave our circle and go into the circles, then we're going to encounter all this funky behavior from them, and then they're the bad guy. But
right. And I mean, of course, I want to highlight, since you mentioned cheating, it's not our fault if somebody cheats. Right.
Let's come back to that.
Right.
Of course not. None of this is our fault, right? So let me just finish the whole thought. So if I go into the circle, disempower myself. Now I'm in their circle, they're disempowered too. They might come into our circle also, right? So now we're in each other's circle. We're both disempowered, right? Because we're not taking care of our business, and we're in our partner's circle, so they can't show up. Everything's really, really messy. That's codependence at its best.
Right. Or at its worst, depending how you look at it.
Right. And so that's just really messy dynamics. That's when you have all the drama, like chaos, like aggression, all the funny business, like that. You start seeing really funny stuff in relationships. There's more subtle versions of that too. I don't want to be a drama queen about it. But what we want to do is make sure that we stay in our own circle, because then when we speak from our circle, just to answer your first question about this, when we speak from our circle, we could speak from our authority, because I could speak about my thoughts, about my preferences, about my feelings, about my needs, about how I was impacted by your actions. But if I tell you, you did that because, how do I know? I'm not in your head.
Yeah,
right?
You're ascribing a motive, and then the person's going to feel misunderstood.
Right. So we don't want to make assumptions. We don't want to assign motives. We don't want to do any of that funny business. Now, when I speak like that, my partner now wants to take care of me or wants to love me and receive me, right? So they will listen to all of that. But if I go about it the other way, again, they're going to like not be available, right? So that's that part. Then about the cheating. It is never our fault. Also, it's never our fault if we get hit. It is not our fault if our partner drinks or abuses drugs or whatever. All the things that we don't prefer in relationships that are on the non-acceptable spectrum of things, they're not our fault. But, okay, and this might not be popular, don't shoot the messenger. We co-create stuff, right? So the way I show up invites the certain parts of my partner and vice versa. So they invite stuff from us, we invite stuff from them. And we co-create the nature of our relationship. And so, yes, of course, I don't want to be hit, and I'm not asking to be hit. But let me tell you, I've been in sessions where one partner is just going into the person's face, and it's like, dude, you're asking to be hit. Like,
or at least they're asking to be, really like for the other person to get really triggered and then do whatever reactive behavior that they go to when they're triggered.
I love that you're being really nice and politically correct, Valerie, but you know what? We don't have to be so pristine, in my opinion, all of the time, right?
That's right. We're New Yorkers.
Listen, I'm a very even-keeled person to some extent. I'm also a very passionate person. I could contain myself. I could moderate myself. I have a lot of resilience. I could do all of the things. I'm fabulous. But you get in my face, let me tell you.
Yeah, no, totally. And
right?
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, I think what I hear you say is that if we go into the other person's circle, and I really want to bring it home by talking about a lot of examples, because I think it's a little hard to understand. But if we criticize, cajole, manipulate, demand, tell the other person what to do, how to think, how to be, how to behave, make them wrong, say, you did this, therefore you don't care about me, and act on all of our assumptions, which is all of the things you're talking about not to do when we go into the other person's circle, of course, they're going to want to attack us back. And whatever way they are programmed by, we're all programmed, with our beliefs from our upbringing, whatever way they're programmed to attack us back, they're going to do. And then we are, quote unquote, asking for it because we are attacking them first, right? That's what I hear you saying.
Yes. And also going back to the cheating, FYI, I don't believe that cheating is one of those game stoppers. Like if you cheat, you're out. So if whatever I said came across too harsh, I believe that it's totally resolvable. Most things in my book are totally resolvable in a relationship. We could transcend most of it, even the things that are hard stops for people. Like, nope, that's not negotiable. That is not, like, I hardly have any of those. Okay. And when people are like, nope, no, I'm like, well, let's talk about that. Right. Because like I said, we collude, we co-create, we invite, and just like I would want another chance, why can't I give my partner another chance? There's all kinds of good stuff in there. And I've seen plenty of couples create amazing relationships post infidelity. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole range of what infidelity is, right? So that's the separate podcast.
I know. Maybe I could interview you about that, because I know that you have a whole program on how to help couples heal from infidelity and grow stronger afterwards.
That's right. Yeah. So if I said that weird in any particular way, please know that you could get past that if you've been cheated on, or if you've done the cheating. That is not it doesn't have to break a relationship.
Exactly. And, I mean, to kind of piggyback on what I said, it's never our fault if we get cheated on or we get hit or whatever. I mean, that's obviously something to talk about with a professional, because there's a lot of nuances there. And at the same time, if we stay in our circle, then we bring out the best behavior in the other person. So why don't we talk about that? What does it actually mean to stay in our circle? So let's come up with examples. Maybe let's start with an easy example. Like, we want to change the fact that our partner is always late and we want them to show up on time. Like, how would you talk about that from within our circle versus going into their circle?
Okay, so we can create, let me start with the context for that. Okay, so yes, we invite change, induce change, inspire change by us doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I show up differently from within my own circle,
yes,
if I tell you not to be late, right, in 1 year,
that's going into their circle, right?
I'm telling them
you're saying, I don't want you to be late, right? So I mean, just to really bring it home, the way you taught me the circles is that in my circle is my thoughts, feelings, and actions. And then the other person's circle is their thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so if we tell them what to do, how to think, how to behave, right, how to feel, they're going to feel controlled.
So if I tell them don't be late, I'm telling them what to do. I'm in their circle. So they're not going to respond to that. Most likely they have a defense around there or an excuse, this and that, whatever. They're not going to change that resistance comes up when we're told what to do.
Right.
So instead, if I speak from my circle, which would look something like this, I know that this is what you're looking for. This is what you're trying to get me to offer. So if I speak from my circle, it would look something like this. Honey, when you're always late, it hurts my feelings. I feel unimportant. I feel taken for granted. I feel unappreciated. I feel disrespected. I feel inconsidered. Is that a word? Not considered.
It's a word. I mean, it's not necessarily an NVC feeling, but I think it's great what you're saying, because all of those are within your own experience. Right. And so you don't have to be nitpicky more than that. It's just like, this is my experience.
Right. So when you're late, I'm feeling all these things. I'm feeling like you don't care. I'm not telling you that you don't care because I don't know, but I feel that there's no care coming towards me. Right. I feel uncared for. I don't feel protected, taken care of, loved, cherished, all the good stuff. Now, this might sound like, okay, who the heck talks like that? So I'm just giving different examples of feelings so people could pick the ones that they like. It could be very, very natural way of saying this. Like, honey, listen, when you're always late, I really feel disrespected. Bam. That's very natural as an everyday conversation way of speaking, right? Mm-hmm. And so then we would say something, we could make a request, and we could say something like, what would be helpful for you to be able to be on time, so I don't feel like I'm waiting, my time is getting wasted, and I feel disrespected or not honored. And they might give you some stuff or not. They might say they don't know. They might say what they could do. Perfect. Now they're engaged. They're cooperating. Hopefully they'll stick to what they say. Now, if they don't, that's a separate conversation. But right. You see, you just invited them. You just asked them, and they're offering something. And now you're collaborating, and you're creating something together. And it took nothing. As opposed to like, you're always late, blah, blah, blah. Why you suck?
Right. Exactly. And I love the way that you demonstrated that, because it doesn't require people to learn a whole new skill set. It's really just about speaking about your experience versus focusing on the other person's behavior. You might start out by pointing out the other person's behavior, but then you focus on, this is how it makes me feel. And then you make a request for what you want. This is what would make me feel honored. Would you be willing to do that? It's very simple. It's a very simple formula that you're teaching and that everybody can put into practice right away. And some people get more nitpicky about the language, but, like, for example, don't use the word always. But I think what you're saying is so brilliant because it's simple. And I agree with you that if you just stay in your circle and you have the attitude that we talked about earlier, which is that this person's on my team and I want to find the win-win, then it matters less about the words you say. What it matters is your energy, and it matters that you're staying in your circle with your energy and you're focusing on how you feel.
and the intention, which is how can we get on the same page about this? How can we both be okay with this, right? So you could either offer some things like, would you be willing to do this or that? You give them options for things to do, or you could ask them like, what are some things that you could do, you think? Because they might just problem solve it immediately, done, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, you could either make a request, like, what would it take for you to show up on time if that's really important to me? Or you can say, what do you think you could do? What are some ideas that you have as to how you could help me to feel more respected? Because when I'm standing there waiting for you, I just feel worried about what's going on and I want to feel more settled. What are some ideas that you have?
Exactly. Exactly. So if I may, I could share a personal experience with this.
Oh, please.
So this is an example of something I actually had to address in my own relationship. I'm the one that's always late.
Sorry, I thought of that example.
Yeah, but that's funny how things show up, right? So interesting. Life is just awesome. And so my husband and I have been together for many years. And I have a tendency to be late. I'm very fluid and flexible in the way that I try to do my life. And that doesn't work for him. I'm speaking in the present tense, but we kind of pretty much resolved this already. So when he brought it up, he was at his wit's end. Like I was always like 20 minutes late. That's like the formula. Like for some reason, no matter what I did, like always 20 minutes late, 20 minutes late, 20 minutes late. So he said, so this is really interesting. I gotta give him credit. He said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. If you're not on time for us to leave the house, I will leave and I'll meet you there. And you could take your own car. I did not like that.
Right, of course. You probably felt rejected.
Oh, so I was like, well, I could be on time. Then I don't have to leave by myself. Right? I have a choice. He set a boundary for what he's going to do.
Exactly. That's a very like a clear example of what a boundary is, because a boundary is not trying to change the other person's behavior. A boundary is saying, if you do this, here's what I will do.
That's right. So people think that boundaries, like we put boundaries on other people. We have no control over other people. And who are we to put other people or give them consequences? Like, right? So he did a fabulous job setting a boundary. Like, I can't do this, right? Like, this is what I do. He can't control me. He can't make me be on time. He tried for decades. Right? So he said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. So this is what I'm going to do. Now you could be on time or I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
It freaking worked. Because I was like, I don't like that. My abandonment issues got triggered. Like, you're going to leave me? What do you mean? Right?
Of course.
So I was like, all right, that deal. And so I learned to say, okay, if we say we're going to leave at 1, okay, what do I need to do to be ready by 1?
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take me to do my hair? How long does it take me to close up whatever I'm doing beforehand? How long, right? So I reverse engineered. When do I have to start getting ready so I could be ready on time? So I figured it out.
Right.
Right. So I'm on time. No, actually, I'm sorry. How did this go? So this is funny now. So I'm sure that a lot of you can relate to this, who was listening. I'm doing my things. I'm on time for 1 o'clock. 10 to 1, he starts getting all antsy and pacing around and like all these things. Dude, we said 1 o'clock, and he said, well, but like, so that you could be ready for 1 o'clock. And I realized that for him, on time means early.
Right.
For me, on time means a few minutes late. I'm from another culture. If you're early, it's rude. You're interrupting people's things.
Right.
You're imposing in their own space and time, right? If you show up a little late, then they're ready for you, right? You're not encroaching in their own time, in their own, before they start time. Like they're doing their own thing. That's not your time. So I was like, oh, interesting. I would have never known that unless we would have went through the exercise. So now I shoot for 10 minutes early. And bam.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're learning how to realize that you have a different culture and he has a different culture. And you're going deeper with understanding, oh, this is why I do it. And this is why he does it. And oh, okay, I can be ready on time because now I'm in his culture. So you're attuning to him. And I just think that that's really generous of you. And you were inspired to do that because he didn't go into your circle. He wasn't making you wrong. He wasn't saying, you're late and that's rude and I don't like it, right? Because then you would have felt judged and uninspired to change. But what
Right.
he did instead was stayed in his own circle. This doesn't work for me. Here's what I'm going to do instead. And because that didn't give you anything to resist, you were just like, oh, that's his reality. How can I attune to it? Right. And then
At the
you
end of the
look
day,
inside yourself.
right. Exactly. So at the end of the day, I do want to please him, right? And he didn't come attacking, criticizing, shaming me, all the things, right? He didn't do any of the funny business that couples usually do, or that he had done in the past that didn't work. Right? Let's be real. And so when he did it differently, I was able to hear his need and
Right.
his boundary, and also how does that impact me? And am I okay with that?
Exactly.
I didn't like that. That doesn't serve me. And of course, I also wanted to make sure that I'm good to him. So it was a no-brainer. It was actually easy at that point. Then like, okay, what do I need to do to crack the code on this? Piece of cake.
Exactly. Because when the other person doesn't go into our circle and try to change us, then we don't feel controlled. Then we feel inspired to actually hear what's important to them and see if we want that too.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can bring in a short example from my relationship too with something else. It's like I tend to be disorganized. And it's, because my dad always wanted me to be more organized, but he went into my circle. So then I rebelled against it. Right. And so when my husband went into my circle and tried to tell me what to do and how to do it, then I didn't want to organize. But then
Right.
when he got vulnerable with me and told me how he felt claustrophobic or he felt inefficient, he couldn't actually be as productive as he wanted to be because the space wasn't organized. Then I felt motivated to want to organize more to make the space feel better for him.
Exactly. That makes complete
So,
sense.
yep, that's just a really quick example of what it means to stay in your circle versus what it means to go into the other person's circle. And, so what it takes is just a change of mindset, right? We're just honing in of what you've already said. You're saying this person's on my team. I want to create the win-win. And then it does take more work because we're so used to just blaming the other person or criticizing or talking about what their behavior is that we don't like. It's a habit, right? It takes a little bit more work initially to say, how am I feeling? What am I needing? How do I make a request?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people usually at first they have only a slightly reaction. I actually find that my clients love this. This feels like a breath of fresh air. It doesn't feel like a lot of work because once they start speaking about themselves, it's like, because it's not like that effort that you had to do when you go into the person's circle. It's like so much easier at the end of the day. It just requires like, oh, let me look at it from a different angle. Like, oh, okay, now I speak from over here instead of from over here. At the end of the day, not that much more work. And it's liberating, it's empowering, it's just beautiful. The partner responds immediately. Like I teach this in the first sessions with people, and it's like immediate, instantaneous change most of the time. As soon as I start applying the concept, they're like, oh, it's beautiful, right? And it's like so easy, so simple, and people love it. So
it is. You get immediate feedback when people start staying in their own circle that it actually does feel better to both of you.
yes, it's really pretty.
And I mean, I think that is just practice because we have a habit of blaming or criticizing to create change. And once we realize that doesn't work, then it takes mindfulness to pause and ask myself, how am I feeling? What am I needing? How can I speak about myself? But
yeah, that's the tricky part. That negativity bias is very, very strong, right? Just looking for the problems. What are the things? How are my needs not being met? How is my partner wronging me? How do they not keep their promise? How are they not meeting my needs? That, I mean, that's just a terrible lens and script that we potentially operate with most of the time. So
yeah,
that
it feels bad for everyone.
is bad programming, bad habits, thought patterns, programming, mindset, scripts, like all kinds of things. And also what drives all that stuff, all the wounds and everything else. Like you referred to your father a few times, right? So like, yeah, all the wound and where all the programming come from in the first place. So for sure, all that stuff is there. And it's habitual. So if we are very intentional about changing the patterns, we could deprogram all of that. And then it's easy, right? Just like with any habit, you put a little bit of intentionality, you remove some of the frictions, you stay intentional, you put the things in place to support you, and then you work on changing the habit.
Yes, exactly. Are there any particular practices that you recommend that people do on a regular basis to learn how to stay in their circle?
Well, so let me give you the one before that. So to be able to do that, the first thing that I would encourage people to do is to have some kind of a mindfulness practice. I think you kind of brought this up already. So if we're able to kind of slow down, deep breathing, and whatever mindfulness practice you like, yoga, meditation, go sit on a hill, go sit in a cave, or just stay on your bed with the blankets over your head, whatever you like to do for meditation, walking, exercising, washing the dishes, listening to something inspiring, whatever it is, to quiet the chatter, right? To stay in yourself, within yourself, and to connect with the core of who you are. Not all the noise, not all the thoughts, not all of the patterns. Because from that connection, when that all this stuff shows up, it's very easy to recognize.
Right, exactly.
Right? So huge. And also that stuff doesn't feel good, right? So even like in our own thoughts, like never mind when we say it, we might, like we said earlier, we might have that temporary relief, but it doesn't feel good to our partner. At the end of the day, it doesn't feel good to us. But even if we don't say it, if we have it running through our head, it still doesn't feel good.
Right.
There's a reason for that, right? So where's the relief in that? You're just thinking of it. Right?
Yeah. And I love what you said, because we don't necessarily know that it doesn't feel good unless we slow down and do some kind of self-love, self-care practice. Mindfulness is one. I like journaling as well, but really connecting to our own feelings and our own needs and recognizing that's how we recognize that those negative thoughts don't feel good. Because if we're just used to being busy and overwhelmed, like, and constantly listening to our negative thoughts and narrating because that's what we need to do to get stuff done, then we don't realize how bad it feels until we slow down and we pay attention to how we're feeling and what we're needing. And that if we do that, that's how we can then ask ourselves, how do I express that from within my circle rather than blaming the other person? But I agree, we need to slow down in order to even know that.
Yeah. So we have to remember that our thoughts create our feelings, which then create our actions. So if we're mindful of our thoughts, right, and we could slow them down enough so that we could identify, oh, there's that script again, or that pattern, and we could start seeing the things, and then we could challenge them, we could be gentle with ourselves, and then start cleaning up our thoughts. Then we will see that different feelings get created. If we have this thought, I feel like this. If I have this thought, I feel like this. Interesting. Right? If I choose my partner this way, these feelings get generated. If I choose to look at my partner this way, on the same instance, the same thing. If I look at it if I give him this motive, I assign this motives, make these assumptions, whatever, I feel like this. If I look at it like giving him the benefit of the doubt, or compassion or credit or something different, I feel differently. Very interesting, right?
Yes.
And actions will follow. So huge.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I know that you have a free gift that you're offering to our audience, and it's a whole mini relationship course. So I imagine that you explore a lot of these concepts in more detail, right? How to really slow down and connect with yourself, how to really identify what you want rather than criticizing the other person. So do you want to talk more about that?
Yes, it's a very simple starter mini course. It's not scary or threatening in any way. People, but the word course might sound scary to people, so it sounds like a huge investment. So it is free. It's a 3 part email sequence where you get some quick inspirations about some of the things that we touched on today to help you start integrating some of these things for yourself so you can start getting the shifts immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah, because as you know, it really just takes regular practice to change a pattern. And it's kind of hard to get into practice, but once you're in it, it has momentum. And so I'm imagining that your 3-part email sequence is a great way to start that momentum going so that people can shift from focusing on what the other person's doing wrong to focusing on how I'm feeling and what I'm wanting instead, and how can I inspire myself and then inspire the other person.
And when I show up differently, then my partner shows up differently in turn. And when I change, they change in turn. Bam.
Absolutely. I think that that is how to bring it all home. And so I really encourage everybody to check out Emma Viglucci's website. It's metrorelationship.com. And on the homepage is the link to get the free gift. And so, of course, I will include that in the show notes. If you are watching the YouTube video, then it's just below the description. If you are watching it or listening to it on a podcast platform like Spotify or iTunes, then the show notes should be there. But if not, then you'll get to listen to this. I've actually interviewed Emma before. And it was like in 2018, I think, when I first started this podcast. So this interview will be at coachvaleriegreen.com/Emma-2, because I've already interviewed Emma once, and that's /Emma. So if you go to /Emma, you can see the other interview that or listen to. I believe that we did that one as audio only. So it would be on my website as coachvaleriegreen.com/Emma. And that was how to stop the drama and transform conflict into deeper connection. So you can listen to that one. I think I'll put the link to that one below this so that people know how to access both of them. And yeah, and let us know as well. I know that Emma mentioned that she has a whole program to help get beyond infidelity, and I have not interviewed anybody about that before. Happy to interview her about that again. If people want that, feel free to let us know in the comments, or feel free to let us know in the comments if you want to hear about anything else, because this podcast is really dedicated to bringing you the best and the most cutting edge topics on how to have that soul shaking love relationship. So anything else that you want to say about that, Emma, or I just look forward to picking your brain next time.
Well, just closing thoughts, be nice to yourself and each other.
Absolutely. And I know that that sounds simple, but it is incredibly powerful to put into practice, self-compassion, self-love. And really, that doesn't mean letting ourselves off the hook. It means connecting to our own feelings and needs so that we can then look at our partner as that they're on our team. And that's how I hear that. So absolutely. And so I wish everybody the most self-love and absolutely joyful relationship-filled day. And until next time.